The air inside the dingy alley was thick with the scent of rotting garbage and stale urine. However, it failed to trouble him. He changed into used to it. He'd been residing on these streets for as long as he should consider, surviving by way of his wits and anything scraps of meals he could discover. His name become Thomas, but no person had referred to as him that during years. To them, he was just another nameless face within the crowd, every other statistic in the limitless flow of forgotten lives. He had been sitting on a crate, misplaced in thought, when he heard a faint whimper coming from in the back of a dumpster. He hesitated for a moment, now not sure if it was just his imagination playing tricks on him. But whilst the sound came again, clearer this time, he knew he could not forget about it. With a sigh, he stood up and walked over to the dumpster. The nearer he were given, the louder the whimper have become. It seemed like something turned into trapped interior, struggling to unfasten itself from anything had imprisoned it. He gripped the take care of the dumpster, took a deep breath, and lifted it aside. There, amidst the discarded rubble and rusted metal, turned into a creature he'd in no way visible before. It became small and furry, with large, expressive eyes and delicate functions. Its body became blanketed in silver-blue fur, and it turned into shivering violently from the cold. Thomas crouched down beside it, accomplishing out a tentative hand. The creature flinched at his touch, however did not try to run away. Hey, little man, he murmured softly. It's okay. I'm no longer going to hurt you. He hesitated, questioning what he need to do subsequent. He couldn't simply go away here. It would die of exposure or be overwhelmed via someone else who got here along. But at the equal time, he had no concept how to take care of something like this. It manifestly wasn't from around here. As if sensing his confusion, the creature set free a tiny whimper and tilted its head to the aspect, looking up at him with massive, innocent eyes. Thomas couldn't help, however, experience an unusual sense of reference to it. He reached out and gently stroked its fur, feeling it loosen up underneath his contact. The creature made a cheerful little noise and nestled towards him. There was something about it that changed into familiar. Something in its eyes, in the manner it moved, that reminded him of memories he'd heard as a baby, of creatures from other worlds and magical nation-states. He knew that bringing it domestic with him changed into a bad concept, however he could not assist feeling answerable for it. Okay, he said, standing up and brushing off his pants. Come on, little guy. Let's get you someplace heat and secure. He scooped the creature up into his palms, cautious now not to hurt it, and began to make his manner through the alley, towards the park in which he on occasion located a quiet spot to relaxation. As he walked, he could not assist but marvel what this all intended, and wherein this atypical new connection changed into going to steer them. The creature nestled closer to his chest, its heat breath tickling his neck. It appeared content material and secure in his palms, trusting him to attend to it. Thomas didn't recognize if he changed into prepared for that duty, however he could not just leave it there to die. He needed to try. The park became only a few blocks away, however it regarded like an eternity as he carried the creature through the cold night-time air. His clothes had been skinny and threadbare, offering little safety from the sit-back, however he failed to dare return to his antique lifestyles. Not now. Not at the same time as he had this new obligation. Finally, they arrived on the park. It changed into abandoned, as normal, however Thomas knew simply the spot where he could curl up and get some rest. He found a secluded clearing near a huge tree, set the creature down lightly, and wrapped his threadbare jacket round it. The furry creature shivered violently at the beginning, however quickly started to loosen up because it nestled into the makeshift bed. Thomas sat lower back, watching the creature for a second, wondering what to do next. He couldn't take it return to the alley, and he could not thoroughly hold it right here in the park. But something told him that he could not simply abandon it either. He sighed closely and leaned lower back against the tree, remaining his eyes and trying to find some peace within the chaos of his mind. As he sat there, lost in idea, the creature stirred, its tiny nostril twitching as it sniffed the air. It set free a tender, contented sigh and curled up tighter, drifting off to sleep. Thomas couldn't help, however, smile softly at the sight. Maybe, simply perhaps, this odd new addition to his life wasn't any such bad issue after all. Perhaps it turned into the beginning of something new, something higher. Or perhaps it changed into just any other obstacle in an extended line of them. Either way, he knew that he would do anything he could to guard this creature, this silver-blue miracle that had observed its way into his lifestyles. He sat there for hours, looking over the creature as it slept. The nighttime sky slowly started to vanish to dawn, and the sounds of the town starting to stir around them. As the first rays of sunlight peeked over the horizon, Thomas reluctantly stood up, brushing the dirt and leaves from his garments. It was time to face the day, and all of the challenges that got here with it. He knew that locating a permanent domestic for the creature would be tough, if not possible. But for now, he should supply it shelter, warm temperature, and safety. And maybe, just perhaps, someplace down the line, matters could work out for the both of them. With one final examine the napping creature, Thomas grew to become and began to make his way out of the park, equipped to face whatever the day had in save for them. The creature stirred once more as Thomas led it through the streets, its eyes fluttering open and closed because it took inside the sights and sounds of the city. It regarded content material to follow Thomas, trusting in his steerage. As they walked, Thomas found himself telling the creature stories about his life, about the human beings he'd met and the locations he'd been. It turned into atypical, speaking to something that could not apprehend a word he turned into saying, but one way or the other it felt proper. They subsequently arrived at an abandoned constructing that Thomas occasionally used as a temporary safe haven. It wasn't an awful lot, only some damaged home windows and a collapsed roof, but it saved the worst of the weather out. Thomas carefully set the creature down on a pile of vintage blankets and rummaged through his meager possessions, attempting to find something it is able to devour. He located a few scraps of food in a torn bag and provided them to the creature, which snatched them up eagerly, its tiny claws delicately tearing on the paper. As they ate, Thomas could not help, however, sense experience of obligation for the creature. He knew that he could not preserve it right here forever, however he additionally couldn't convey himself to desert it. He tried to think about a manner to find someone or something that might help them, but for now, they would have to make do with what they'd. As the creature completed its meager meal, Thomas scooped it up again and held it near, feeling its warm temperature and the regular beat of its tiny heart in opposition to his chest. They sat collectively in silence for some time, the most effective sound the mild rustling of the creature's fur as it settled backtrack to sleep. Thomas couldn't assist but marvel in which their adventure together would take them. All he knew became that, for now, he would do everything in his strength to maintain them secure. And ultimately, that changed into all that simply mattered. As the sun started out to dip under the horizon, casting long shadows throughout the abandoned constructing, Thomas felt an extraordinary combination of desire and worry. Hope that they would locate a place wherein they could both be satisfied and safe, and fear of the unknown enemies that the creature had referred to, and what they may do in the event that they ever found them again. He notion returned to the research facility, the abandoned system and the notes left behind. The scientists had been interested in the creature, analyzing its capabilities, and trying to understand its particular connection to the herbal world. But that they had additionally been fearful of it, satisfied that it could be a weapon, a device for destruction. Thomas knew that they had been proper to worry it. Thomas located
However,
himself
he additionally
sleeping
knew
off,
that the creature
lulled
become
by
greater
means
than
of
the
the
rhythmic
rhythmic
respiration
of the creature
It
in his
became a
fingers.
dwelling,
Respiration
He dreamt of a
creature,
world where
with
the creature
emotions
should lie
and a soul,
free,
without worry of persecution or exploitation. A global where its abilities had been used for desirable, to heal and protect those who needed it most. It became an international that appeared impossibly remote, but he held on to the wish that one day, they might discover it collectively. The next morning, Thomas woke up with a begin, the creature nonetheless napping peacefully in his hands. He stretched his cramped limbs, yawned, and surveyed their surroundings. The abandoned constructing seemed no different than it had the night earlier than, but Thomas felt a feel of cause, a determination to find a manner to offer the creature the life it deserved. He scooped the creature up gently and activate all over again, trying to find a brand new domestic where they might each discover safety and happiness. As they wandered via the metropolis, Thomas could not help but sense an ordinary blend of feelings. He was excited for the journey in advance, however additionally terrified of the unknown dangers that lay in wait. The creature seemed to sense his unease, and every so often set free a soft trill, nuzzling in opposition to his neck, as though to reassure him that the entirety would be very well. Despite his fears, Thomas couldn't help however feel of peace each time the creature became near. It became as though a few invisible pressure connected them, binding them together in a manner that transcended words or knowledge. Eventually, they stumbled upon a small, deserted zoo. The cages were rusty and overgrown with weeds, but there was something approximately the place that felt right to Thomas. Perhaps it became the relationship the creature needed to the natural international, or maybe it was truly a rely of finding a place in which they is probably able to stay out their lives in relative safety. Whatever the cause, Thomas knew that this became where they belonged. As they approached the zoo's gates, Thomas paused, gathering his courage. He glanced down at the creature in his hands, feeling its heat breath on his neck, and knew that he would do something it took to make sure they each located happiness here. With a deep breath, he pushed open the rusted gate and stepped into their new domestic. The zoo became larger than it had seemed from the outside, with overgrown paths winding through dense foliage and overgrown meadows. The animals' enclosures have been in the main empty, keep for the occasional chicken or small rodent scurrying throughout the floor. But there has been something about the vicinity that felt right to Thomas. It was as if the creature and the sector round it had in the end discovered an area in which they belonged. They wandered through the zoo for hours, exploring every corner and deserted enclosure. As they surpassed by way of the ruins of the as soon as grand pavilion, Thomas noticed a small, hidden door inside the again, included in vines and hid from view. He hesitated for a moment, questioning what secrets and techniques might lie at the back of it, but the creature regarded bored with investigating similarly. It nuzzled towards his hand, urging him to maintain on their adventure. Finally, they came to a small pond within the center of the zoo. The water became clear and nevertheless, reflecting the greenery that surrounded it. The creature seemed out over the pond, its eyes shimmering with an abnormal, otherworldly mild. Thomas knew that this became in which they would make their domestic. They would build a lifestyles together here, safe from the risks of the out-of-doors international and loose to explore the splendor of nature that surrounded them. As the sun started to set, casting a heat glow over the zoo, Thomas sat down beside the pond, cradling the creature in his fingers. He felt a feel of peace wash over him, a peace he hadn't recognized in view that before the conflict. The creature curled up towards him, its head resting on his shoulder, and that they sat together in silence, looking the celebrities begin to appear inside the sky. For the primary time in a long time, Thomas felt hope. He didn't know what the future held for them, however he knew that they would face it collectively. They could discover a way to make this location their domestic, and they would make certain that the creature's precise abilities were used for the greater exact. They would find happiness here, and in doing so, they would honor the sacrifices of those who had given their lives to protect it. The solar rose higher inside the sky, casting its heat light across the deserted zoo. Thomas and Silver sat on a mossy hill overlooking the pond, watching as a circle of relatives of deer gracefully drank from its waters. The creature nestled in opposition to Thomas's chest, content and at peace. He couldn't help, however, smile down at it, feeling an overwhelming experience of gratitude for the present it had given him. They spent the day exploring the zoo similarly, discovering hidden paths and forgotten enclosures. They came across a lush lawn packed with flora of each color imaginable, their sweet heady scent filling the air. Thomas cautiously picked a small bouquet for Silver, who ordinary it with a gentle nuzzle. They wandered hand in hand through the lawn, their laughter mingling with the songs of the birds that sang above them. As the afternoon wore on, they found themselves at the brink of the forest, where a clearing were carved out of the timber. In the middle of the clearing stood a large oak, its branches unfold huge, sheltering a small organization of animals from the solar. Thomas looked at Silver, thinking if possibly this turned into in which they have been supposed to construct their home. The creature seemed to recognize, nodding its head in agreement. Together, they walked forward, prepared to begin the subsequent chapter in their lives.